Hi, I'm Heather Parker and I'm from 24.com. I edit the website Health24 and I'm here to talk about my top 10 tips for beating exam stress. Tip number 1, pretty much your worst enemy is panic. Panic is one of the inevitabilities around exams. You panic the day before, you panic the night before, you wake up in the morning, you panic, and you go after the exam, you're panicking. And you simply cannot think clearly under those circumstances. So my first real tip is this. When you are an hour away from having to leave for your exam, that's when you down your books. You take yourself outside. If you're anywhere near a body of water, go and stand and throw stones into it for a little while. Or if you're by a beach, go and listen to the waves. If you've got a garden, go and look at the leaves and the trees. But for an hour before you go, don't study at all. By the time you get to the exam, your breathing will have normalized, your heart rate will have normalized, your brain will have cleared, and you'll be in a much better position to do a good job. Tip number 2, get active. The thing about stress, whether it relates to exams or anything else, is that it's pretty much an animal response to a set of circumstances that we feel slightly out of control of. You've heard of the fight or flight response. Now that is a function of how we were as primitive people. So you would see whatever it was that used to attack us, a tiger. Let's say a tiger was coming to attack you. And your two responses were either to run away or to fight it. Now if it was a tiger, you really couldn't run away fast enough, so you'd fight it. If it was something else, if it was a next door neighbor, you might run away. Now the point about the hormones that are released into your body through stress is that that's what they're gearing you up to do. They're gearing you up for some sort of action. If you ignore them, cortisol and other stress hormones, they build up and over a period of time are responsible for a lot of diseases, including cancer, it's widely thought. In the short term though, they're no good for you either because they actually clog up your mind, they clog up your system. So the best thing to do when you're feeling stressed is to run. You can run away or you can go to the gym and you can box a boxing bag. But basically through doing that, you actually physically neutralize stress hormones, and so you actually physically neutralize stress. So it is absolutely the best thing to do when you feel like the world's getting too much and you haven't got time. It's exactly when you make the time. Tip number 3, watch what you eat. The thing about fast food is that it's convenient, and when you're in a hurry, when you can't take time out, fast food is exactly what you head for. So you might well head for a jam sandwich, or you might well head for burger and chips when you're running out of time to study. But it's the worst possible thing you can do. Fast food is by definition high in a whole lot of things that are bad for you, and the worst thing is that often it's very high in carbohydrates that are easily broken down, and your body gets into a cycle of glucose spikes and dips. It's just sugar. So the sugar spikes in your system, and then the higher it goes, the quicker it falls down again, the sooner you have to eat something to spike it up again, and you end up in this sort of really destructive seesaw of blood sugar. The thing is, you can't control that when you're in an exam situation. So although you can sort of keep yourself on a high for a certain amount of time before you go into the exam, by definition, you're guaranteed to hit a slump. And the last place you want to be out of control and having absolutely no energy and your brain's not working properly is when you're in an exam situation. So the important thing to do when you're studying is to eat properly. Think very much, again, about fruit and vegetables, whole food. And if your mum's cooking for you, then just basically speak to her with a very firm tone of voice about the fact that if you don't eat properly, you're not going to do that well. Tip number 4, get enough sleep. We're all familiar with the syndrome where in an effort to cover all the territory that you want to cover before you write the exam, you're chucking all night. And now it's the single most counterproductive thing you can do because your brain simply doesn't function the next day. And all the caffeine that you've had to drink to keep yourself up while you've studied is actually going to result in you being jittery. It's going to result in your brain being fuzzy. You're actually going to blank out. There's a very good chance that you're going to blank out the morning after the night that you haven't gone to sleep. It's the last thing you should do. If you find yourself unprepared for the exam, your preparation of sleep is infinitely better than your preparation of reading through everything. Tip number 5 is something that is quite useful for the rest of your life as well. Learn to say no. When you are in exam mode, it simply isn't going to happen that the rest of your life can continue as normal. There will be people around you who are not writing exams who won't understand this. But it's very important to understand now that you are absolutely entitled to dip out of anything that is going to take your focus off what you need to do. Your stress levels are only going to increase if you find yourself oversubscribed with too much to do, too little time, and not enough capacity to squeeze it all in. So say no, it really does work. Tip number 6 has to do with the way you speak to yourself. There is a habit that we all have of seeing things in terms of what we haven't done, in terms of what we don't know. One of the most constructive things you can do, if for example you're looking at a process of work that you need to do, we tend to look at it and think, oh, I don't know X, Y, and Z. It's much more constructive to look at it, notice what you do know, and think in terms of, I just need to learn X, Y, and Z. It seems simple, it seems banal, but it's highly effective in terms of ordering your stress patterns. So think positively. Tip number 7 is to understand that this is genuinely, in world terms, this is one of the personal crises that all of us go through. Writing exams is a highly stressful period. It doesn't get easier as you write more exams. So one of the things that you need to learn now, and which is going to stand you in great stead for the rest of your life, is to understand the value of routine. It sounds, I know, as if I'm your grandmother, but that's not, you must get over that, because what's important is that if you don't have breakfast, you're going to have a slump. If you don't take time away from your books, you're going to have a slump. So, for example, what often we do is we just start taking meals by the books because we can't afford the 45 minutes to get away. There's something immensely constructive about putting down the books, walking to a different room, sitting down, having a meal, talking to people who don't share your sense of panic or your sense of crisis. If you're lucky enough to be sharing your space, or have people in your family who are quite calm, then if you are particularly worried about something, raise it, talk about it over dinner. But if not, then just keep stum. But take the time out, it's terribly important. Take a proper bath or shower. Just spend time doing stuff that sort of centers you, because that stuff over time has actually become part of who you are. And if you take away all of the things that you are during exam times, you're going to find yourself quite fractured. Tip number 8 is to take a 5-minute break every hour. If you need to set an alarm clock, then that's what you must do. But at the 55-minute mark, stand up, wiggle your shoulders, shake your wrists about, take a run around the house if that's what you need to do. Look away from the sort of close work that you've been doing into the middle and to the far distance. It keeps your eyes fresher, it keeps your brain fresher. The blood flow means that you wake up a bit. And it's basically just a way of giving yourself a sort of a shake and then getting back to what you're doing. There is a brilliant set of exercises on the website I edit called, if you go to www.health24.com, look for desk exercises. There are excellent ways of flexing your muscles, stretching yourself. You can come back from a 5-minute break feeling as if you've had a half-an-hour break. Really good thing to do. Tip number 9, don't dehydrate. Think of yourself as a plant, and if you look at a plant that hasn't had water for a couple of days, it might not be dying, it might not be physically terribly different, but everything is softer. The leaves are softer, the stems are a bit droopier. That's an analogy for what actually happens to you physically and intellectually when you are slightly dehydrated. Our bodies are 80% made out of water, about. And if you are even 5% dehydrated, your cell function is implicated, and certainly your brain function is affected by that. So keep a glass of water to hand. Don't keep it anywhere near your computer, but keep a glass of water to hand and try and get through about 2 liters of water a day, even when you feel like you're not thirsty. Think of water as an energy drink, because that's exactly what it is. Tip number 10, when you're studying, manage your environment quite carefully. Many of us feel that we actually work better if there's music playing in the background. Studies indicate that this is absolutely not the case. Studies indicate that music, unless it's extremely neutral background music, unless it's wallpaper music like certain classical music, actually is a distraction. There's a little bit of your brain that is perpetually focusing on the music. So if you can stand to, do switch the music off. If you find yourself getting very sort of sluggish and tired, think about getting an essential oils burner. The citrusy oils like bergamot and orange are particularly good at waking you up. Rosemary is another good one. Basically, your study environment is where you're going to be spending an awful lot of time, And if you don't look after it, if you don't think it through carefully, if you don't think about the lighting and the smells and the sounds and the seat that you're sitting in, you're going to tire yourself out a lot quicker. So focus on that. So those are my top 10 tips for beating exam stress. I hope they've helped, and good luck.